Okay, so we're going to make a small video right here on writing quadratic equations given its solutions. And this is actually from an old worksheet 4.3 WSP. Here it is. We skipped the first part of this worksheet. We focused in just on factoring, splitting, and solving. But this first part of the worksheet says write an equation, and they also say in standard form, with the given roots, with the given solutions, with the given answers, because we need to remember that roots, answers, solutions, x-intercepts all mean the same thing. So they give you on number 3 these answers, -5 and +8. So I would work this backwards, right? How would we work it out normally? Well, down here we have a quadratic equation. If I wanted to solve it, what do? I factor it. Just to review, what times what is 8? That if you combine together is -6. That would be a -4 times a -2. And of course, use a list if necessary. But anyways, the whole purpose of factoring is to be able to have zero product property, something times something else equals 0. So the first something, x minus 4, that could be 0. And the second something, x minus 2, that could also be 0. Giving you your two final answers, x equaling +4 and x equaling +2, right? So what we want to do on the first part of this worksheet is where I give you these answers, and then you work backwards to the two simple equations that were set equal to 0, and then work backwards and put this binomial and this binomial together and set it equal to 0, and then work backwards and actually distribute and combine, giving you your original standard form quadratic trinomial equation. Does that make sense? So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be working backwards. So over here on, you guys wanted to do number 3, we're going to have the answers -5 and 8. Okay? So at the bottom of your paper, put x equals -5 and x equals 8. -5 and 8. Okay? So where did the answer x equals -5 come from? Well, it came from a simple equation that was set equal to 0. So you could just go +5, and you'll get the equation where that answer came from. That would be the equation x plus 5 equals 0. Isn't that right? If I were to solve this, I would get the answer x equals -5. Over here, where did x equals 8 come from? X minus 8, right? You could just set it equal to 0, -8, and you have x minus 8 equals 0. Okay, so that's where these red answers, they came from, these simple equations that were set equal to 0. Now, where did these two equations set equal to 0 come from? It came from that zero product property, but backwards. Instead of having a factored form expression and splitting them and setting them each equal to 0, we're going to put them back together and put both of them multiplied together equaling 0. So we really have a binomial x plus 5 and a binomial x minus 8. X plus 5, x minus 8, we put them together, and that is set equal to 0. Right? Where normally we would split them and solve. Right here we're putting them back together, set equal to 0. It's working the whole thing backwards. Originally, we have a quadratic trinomial that we factor to be able to get it to look like this. Then we split it and solve. Right here we're working backwards, setting them each equal to 0, putting them together, and now we're actually going to distribute and combine like terms to get that original quadratic trinomial that's in standard form. So let's do that. We're going to simply distribute x times x, x squared, x times -8, -8x, +5 times x is a +5x, +5 times -8 is a -40, and of course we could combine the middle terms, a -8x and a +5x. That will give us the middle term -3x. And of course we have the x squared in the front, and we have the -40 at the end, and it's still equal to 0, equal to 0. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the original standard form quadratic trinomial equation that produces the answers -5 and +8. Would you like to see another? Yes, please. Okay, which one? All right, let's try the next one. 4. -7 and -8. This is ridiculously easy now. One answer, x equals -7. The other answer, x equals -8. Where did those come from? Where did this answer right here come from? It came from x plus 7 equaling 0, huh? Where did the other one come from? X plus 8 equaling 0, huh? And where did these simple equations that are set equal to 0, where did those come from? Yeah, It came from both of those together. The x plus 7 times the x plus 8 equal to 0. So x plus 7 times x plus 8 equaling 0. Okay, that's where they came from. So where did this factored form, binomial times binomial, where did that come from? From an original quadratic trinomial equation. So all we have to do is distribute, right? X times x, x squared, x times 8, 8x, 7 times x, 7x, 7 times 8, 56. And of course, we could combine the 8x with the 7x, giving us a positive 15x with an x squared in the front, with the plus 56 at the back, with the equal 0 right there. And ladies and gentlemen, this is your quadratic equation that's set equal to 0 that produces the two answers given to us, x equals -7 and x equals -8. So it's really just doing what we already know, but backwards, where you have the answers and you work backwards to get to the original equation. Let's do one more, and I want to go with one that has a fraction in it. Those are super fun. Let's start with 0 and x equaling 0 and x equaling -7/2. So x equaling 0, where did this answer come from? It came from x equals 0. Does that make sense? I know that's weird. But x equals 0, it came from x equals 0. Just bear with me for a while. The other one, where did it come from? Well, I didn't have a fraction. I'd have to get rid of that fraction first by multiplying both sides by the denominator 2, giving us a 2x equaling -7. And of course, that minus 7, to get rid of it, to set it equal to 0, I'd have to add 7 to both sides. So plus 7, giving us the binomial 2x plus 7 equaling 0. Does that make sense? Now, this answer over here and this equation that's set equal to 0, they must have come from something times something equals 0. So this first something that was set equal to 0 is x. The second something that's set equal to 0 is 2x plus 7. So I really have x times 2x plus 7. And that is set equal to 0. Now, this is a factored form of an original equation. So what is that original equation? Just distribute x times 2x, that's 2x squared, x times 7, that's positive 7x. And that's it. Equal to 0. So what's your original standard form quadratic trinomial? Well, it's not a trinomial, it's a binomial, but the bottom line is that c value is 0. So this is your equation where these two answers came from, x equals 0 and x equals -7/2. Shall we try another, or is that excessive already? Should we do 7 or 8? 7 or 8? 8. Wait, didn't we? I think we did 8 on the practice test. So let's do 7. Okay. One answer is 1. The other one's 1/2. Okay. One answer is 1. X equals 1. The other one's x equals 1/2. Okay. Where did the answer x equal 1 come from? If you set it equal to 0, you'll know where it came from. Where did it come from? X minus 1 equal to 0. And where did this one come from? Let's get rid of the fraction first before we set it equal to 0. So that's times 2 times 2. That came from 2x equaling 1, because that canceled. And then we get rid of that 1 by subtracting 1 and subtracting 1, and that'll tell you that it came from 2x minus 1 equaling 0. So we have two simple equations here. This is a one-step, this is a two-step, but we will get the answer 1 and the other answer 1/2. It came from these simple equations that were set equal to 0. And where did these two simple equations that are set equal to 0 come from? They came from the zero product property. Instead of splitting and solving, we're going to work backwards and put them together and set both equal to 0. So, well, not set both, but put them together as 1 and then set that 1 equal to 0. So you really have x minus 1 times 2x minus 1 equal to 0. And then working backwards further, this factored form of a quadratic trinomial came from a quadratic trinomial and factoring it. So what is that quadratic trinomial you distribute? X times 2x is 2x squared. X times -1 is a -1x. And then negative 1 times 2x is a negative 2x, and a negative 1 times a negative 1 is a positive 1. And of course, the middle terms, the negative 1x and the negative 2x, you owe 1, you owe 2. You're going to owe a total of 3 of those x's. And of course, you have the 2x squared in front, 2x squared in the front. You have the plus 1 at the back, plus 1 at the back, and it's still equal to 0, right? Equal to 0. This is your original standard form quadratic trinomial equation that if you were to factor it, split it, and solve it, you get the two answers, x equals 1 and x equals 1/2. So this is the equation that they're asking for. So there are a couple of these, not too many, but there are a couple of these, maybe one, maybe two, on the practice test and on the test. So I hope this helps.